Hello guys, welcome to our third class of Unity, and on this class we're going to learn a little bit more about scripting as well of the different parts and functionalities of C#. Okay, so in this test we had some tests right here where we use hello world. Alright, so what I'm going to be doing right here, I'm going to reuse the same script, but we're not going to do hello world anymore. Okay, so if you want to create a new script for this class, that's okay. But I'm going to use the same script because this script is actually currently empty, so it's no problem in using that. Alright, so we have this cube right here. I'm going to double click this hello world. Okay, so we have this class. This is the default template of the script, as I told you guys on the last class. And on this class, I'm going to show to you guys a new function inside of C# script. But before, I want to teach you guys my view of how script works inside of Unity. Okay, so scripts on Unity works in some kind of behavior. So we're going to teach some behavior to a game object and make this game object work as we want it to work. So it's going to add a new component, and this component will do a lot of things inside of the game. This component usually have two different parts inside of the script. We have the functionality, what the script's going to do. So if you think about movement, we have a script that is responsible to make my character move around the map. So this is a functionality of this script. And we also have the second part of the script, that is the properties. So these properties are where we're going to save information. So usually we have a part where we save information and the other part where we use this information in order to do something. So if you think about it like as I was teaching you with the movement part, we have the property side that have speed, maybe jump force, gravity. All those information works in a way that it's teaching to the character some property. It's not the functionality itself, but it's the property. So it's saving information for a future usage of it. And we also have the functionality. So the movement will use the speed, the jump force, and also the gravity information to make some kind of behavior inside of the character. So usually the scripts that we have are divided in two different parts. The part where we save information and the other part where we use this information to do something. Okay, so in this class, I'm going to show you guys this first part where we save information. And where do we save information inside of a computer? Not only a game, but inside of any kind of a system. We have something called variables. So variables are spaces of memory that we have inside of our computer that we can put some kind of information there, and then the computer will save that information for a further usage of it. So just as an example, imagine that you have the memory inside of the computer. We're gonna save one part of this memory and we're gonna call it variable. So this variable is going to be kind of a box inside of the memory. We can put some kind of information inside of this box. And every time that you look at this box, you will have access to the information that you have inside of it. So memory inside of variables inside of C# are only places that we're using to save some kind of information. And all this kind of information have some specific type of information that you can save. So you can think it as a box. So we have a box for shoes, we have a box for pants, we have a box for hats, and you can't save a hat inside of a box of shoes, and you can't save a shoe inside of a box of a hat. So you have these different boxes that save a specific kind of information, but all of these boxes are considered variables and are saving information inside of the memory. So let's start how we can create a box of memory, or how we can create a variable inside of Unity and save information. Okay, so I'm gonna go right here in the first line of the class, and I'm gonna jump a few lines. All right, so I'm in the first. I'm outside the function. I'm inside the class. You can see by the key brackets right here, I'm inside of it, but I'm not inside a function. I'm outside the function. So usually we write things before the function. So I'm gonna write one kind of variable right here. It's the most basic variable that we use. It's called int, and it saves integer numbers. So I'm gonna go with the first. When you want to create a variable, you just put the type. So int, that's what integer means inside of C#, space, and then after this we are going to put the name of the variable, and I'm gonna put number. Let me put number. I think it's gonna be easy. Semicolon. Okay, so when I do like this, int and the name, remember that the name can be anything. I can put anything right here. I can put even my name right here. I can put anything. All right, I'm gonna put number. Of course, it's better to use a name that if I remember, I know what's the variable it's for. So I usually put the name of the variable, something that makes sense, but you can put anything. And usually the first letter, it's lowercase. Okay, it's not gonna be capital letters in the first one. All right, so we have this box number, and we can save information integer. What is integer information? I'm gonna comment right here something. It's a comment, so it's not gonna affect in the script. I'm gonna comment the kind of information integer that exists inside of the number of the integer class. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 90, 86. So all integer numbers. We can't have decimal numbers right here. Okay, it can be like 1.5. It doesn't exist inside of integer. You only have integer numbers. So 1, 2, 3, negative 5, positive 90, something like this. Okay, so when I say int, the type, the name of the variable, I created this box inside of the memory. And then what I can do is make it equal to 90. So right now I created the box of type int, and then I save the information 90 inside of the box. Okay, so this is how I create a variable. It doesn't need to have this equal 90 right here, okay? If I only want to create a variable but I don't want to put any kind of information inside of it, I can just put int number and that's okay. But usually when we create variables, we already put the information that goes inside of it. So it's like you create the box of the shoe and you already put some kind of a shoe there. That's what basically we are doing. So this class right here, it's an integer class, int, name is number, it can be any kind of name, and it's receiving 10. Okay, so 10 is inside of this number right here. So basically, I'm gonna save this and I'm gonna test one thing. I'm going to debug, okay, this we did on the last class. It's going to print some information and I'm going to debug number. So basically, I'm going to debug this information. But Unity will not debug the number. It will debug whatever have inside of the number 10. So it's going to print the information of number. That for Unity means 10 because that's the information that exists inside of this box of memory number. Okay, so I'm gonna save this and I'm gonna go to Unity. This script right here, it's inside of test. So it's gonna run. Just be careful in order to have some kind of output. You need to have the script inside of a game object. In my case, it have inside of test. Okay, so I'm gonna play it and it should be 10 right here. Yeah, it's in test and probably cube as well. Yeah, on cube it also has. That's why I have twice. All right, so 10. Yeah, that's correct because 10 is the number information that we have right there. So for Unity, number means 10, but because that's what is inside of number. All right, easy. So I'm gonna show to you guys the next variable that we're gonna use, and they have the same exact usage of int. It's going to be exactly equal. The only difference is that int save integer numbers, and the other variables that I'm going to show to you guys is going to save different kind of information. All right, so the next variable that we have right here, it's called float. I'm going to put a name right here that is decimal number. That's the name that I'm going to put in this variable. Why? Because that's what it saves. So equal to 1.5 f. Wow, okay, what is that? What is that dot and f right there? Okay, so float is very, very similar to integer, but the difference is that float also saves decimal parts. So it means that on int we only have 10, 20, 30, something like this. On float we can save something like 1.25, 1.5, 1/3, some number that have decimal parts as well. So when we want to use a float number, we need to put, of course, the decimal part, so dot something, and at the end we need to put f. That's the way that Unity knows that this information is not an int and it's a float. So every time that you need to use a float information, we're gonna put this little f by the side of it. Okay, it only needs the f if we are using the decimal part. If we are only saving like an integer number, like a 10, we can also use float, that's okay, but it doesn't need the f. Okay, we only use the f if we are using decimal parts like 10.6, something like this. Okay, so it's very, very similar to int. The difference is that it saves decimal parts as well. Okay, so we pretty much can use float in any situation that we can also use int, but we can't use int in every time that we want to use float. So for example, speed probably should be a float number because probably we'll have decimal parts on it. But if I'm counting the number of apples that my character ate, that's an integer number. Okay, so I won't have half an apple or 1/3 of an apple. Okay, because that's usually how we do, and it's going to be int. Okay, so it depends on which kind of information you want to save, but usually we use both in different occasions, but they are very, very similar. Integer saves numbers, integer numbers, negative or positive, doesn't really matter. Float numbers saves decimal parts of integer as well. So it saves integer and also decimal parts. Okay, as well, it can be positive or negative. Doesn't really matter in this case, all right? So yeah, int and float both save numbers. Different types of numbers, but both save numbers. Okay, so yeah, let's go for the next one. And just as an example right here, I'm going to use the same kind of thing. In here on debug, instead of printing number, I'm going to print decimal number. Okay, just to test how it goes on Unity. If I play this, it should appear the information that I have right there. Okay, let's go for it, play it. Yep, 10.6. That's what we have, and that's the information that we have inside of a decimal number. Right? Works exactly the way it should. So if we put number, it means 10 because that's what's inside of it. If we put decimal numbers, it means 10 and .6. That's what we have inside of it. The next one that we have is called string. Okay, and that's usually it's a text. Text right here is not going to be a number. We have kind of my name. It can be Yudi, it can be Bob, it can be a awesome text for this variable. All right, so basically string saves text like letters. You can even save numbers, but it's not gonna be a number like integer or float. It's gonna be kind of a text number. So it will only represent this like an alphanumerical symbol. So we can save text inside of strings. So we use these strings a lot when we want to save names, when we want to save some kind of text inside of a game. So string saves text. All right. So we can also have text right here. And if we save this and print text, Unity will print whatever we have inside of the variable text, and it's awesome text for this variable 10. Okay, that's the whole information that we have. Even the spaces are part of the variable. Okay, everything that we have right here. And how Unity knows when we have a number that is a number like integer, or we have a number that is a text. Well, that's very simple. We have quotations. So every time that you have a string, you will need to have quotation marks in between the words. So basically we need to have quotations in order to Unity knows that that's a string information and not an integer or a float information. Okay, so pretty easy, right? We can use the same way as number and decimals, even like type, name, equal. You can see that the structure is always the same. Okay, we have type, name, receive information. Type, name, receive information. Type, name, receive information. Always going to be like this. Remembering that you don't need to put any information. You can cut this part right here, and that is going to be okay. You only have a box of shoes without a shoes inside, but you can put a different kind of information right there, right? The last part that we have, it's called Boolean, or in C# bool, and is true or false. Okay, basically this variable saves true or false. So, or is true or is false. Okay, you only have two options of information that we have right here. And that's a Boolean. So usually we can save like is game over or is the player alive or something like this. So we always going to use Boolean information to save this kind of states. So we only save true or false. So we only have two kind of information that we can save. So if I print this is true or false variable, that's a pretty weird name, but it's gonna work. If we test on Unity, we will have true. That's the information that we have inside of the variable because that's true. All right, pretty easy. Those four kind of variables that we have right here are the most basic one inside of a game development or any kind of a language or programming language that you learn. So just remember that we're going to use this a lot. Okay, numbers, decimal numbers, taxes, and also bool statements. We're going to use this a lot. All right, and well, when we create a variable right here before the start, it doesn't mean that it can't be changed anymore. Okay, it's a box and I have a shoe inside of this box. I can anytime go on this box and change the shoe that I have inside of it. So I can change the information anytime that I want. So if I go here on start, I'm gonna jump a few lines. I can change the information that we have inside of a variable inside of start. So in the first frame that we play the game, it will change the information. So for example, let's see, we can have number equal to 30, decimal numbers equal to 5.6. We can have text equal to another thing, and we can have is true or false equals to false. So it means that these I'm not recreating the variable. I'm just changing the information that you have inside of it. So it starts like this, but in the first frame, it will change to this information. Okay, so I just basically remove the information that we have inside of the shoebox and put another one, and we can do this anytime that we want. That's why the name of these guys are variables, because they vary, they can change, and they will change inside of the game. So number will change information. If I put here on debug number right now, it will not show 10 anymore, because I said that number will be receiving 30. So it will show 30. If I save right here and test the game, you will see that it's gonna show 30 right here. 30, you see? Because that's the latest information that we have inside of the variable. And it's gonna work inside of any kind of variable that we have right here. So if I put text right here and save, it's gonna show the latest information that we have on text. So if I show right here, it's gonna be another thing. That's the latest information that we have. Okay, so keep in mind that variables are not constant. They don't have only one information, that's it. They are changing throughout the game. And it makes sense. Imagine the player health points, something like this. The player health points will be changing throughout the game because that's how the mechanic of the game works. Or we can think about like a game's the player speed, a movement. it will be changed, or it's going to be changing throughout the gameplay. It may be faster or slower, but it's going to change. So this information is not a constant. That's a property that may vary. All right. So we can change this information, any part of the script, basically by doing this. Okay. One last thing that we have, let me have right here. This information type and name, it doesn't have anything before the type. So Unity will understand that those variables are private. They are not public. They only exist inside of this class, and the only one that can edit or change this information is this class. It doesn't exist outside of it. Okay, so basically we can make this all private like it is, or we can make it public. So if we put public before the type on every single variable right here, it means that these variables that we have are now enabled to be changed from outside the class. It means that these variables can be changed outside Hello World. It means that it can be changed inside of Unity. So if I save right here, you can see on my class, on my component, that we have the information right here, and we can change them to whatever we want. Okay, I can put anything right here. Okay, so basically these information right now are public, and if I play the game, these information will be kept. And I can check the current information that my variable have all the time because they are public, and it means that I can watch them from outside the class. All right, as well, they are public, they can be private. And private means the same thing as before. It means that it's not able to be changed from outside the script. Okay, public and private. It's going to be more clear in the future, but basically for now we can see that public can be changed and watch it from outside the class, for example in Unity right here. And if it's private, it means that we can change from outside. So we can't even see that from outside the script. All right. The last thing that we have that I'm going to teach you guys about variables before we actually start changing them is that when we create a variable like right here, it means that this variable number can be used inside of start and update and any other kind of function that exists inside of this class. Okay, but imagine that instead of creating this number inside right here outside the classes, I create it right here. Right now, when I create a variable inside of a function, this is a local variable. It means that it only exists inside of the function. I can't use this number inside of update because it does not exist inside of the update. It only exists inside of the start function. Why? Because it's local. And why it's local? Because I created it inside of a function. So if you create a variable outside a function, like these guys right here, they are what we call global variables. It means that we can use these variables in any function that we have in our class. All right? Usually we have properties as global variables. So like speed or any other kind of information that we're going to use in more than one function, it's going to be outside of the classes, making this global. All right? If it's being created inside of the functions, it's local, and it can only be used inside of that same function that it was created. So be careful about that. But we can create variables from outside, inside, and that's okay. They're just going to be a little bit different in terms of where we can use it. But all these variables right here are global, and we're going to work a lot with global variables from now on. But just keep in mind, if I create a variable inside of a function, that's local, and I can only use this variable inside of that function. Okay, so yeah, we have number, decimal, text, and true or false, and we can do a lot of things with only those 4 kinds of variables right here. Oh, there is more than 4 kinds. Yeah, there is more than 4 kinds, but those 4 kinds are the one that we need to learn because they're the most fundamental ones. All right, that's the most important kind of variables that you need for numbers, text, and true or false information. All right, guys, I hope you guys like this. And from now on, it's gonna behave more kind of like snowballs, and we're going to use a lot of this knowledge. And about like from next class and on, we're going to start using these variables and change the information of them so we can make games with this information. All right, I hope you guys like it. Try to make a debug with all this information and try to change this information right here and then make a debug after it to see how it changes on real life. Try to change the information with them public. You can see that this information will be changing at the same moment. All right? Thank you guys very much. See you on the next class.